And we're live. It's time to soar. Welcome, Don Zeno.
Don Antonio.
It must be another Wednesday. It must be.
It is a great Wednesday.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm happy to be here. And here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask anybody who kind of comes in, drop into the comments and even let us know where you're watching from. That's one of my favorite things is for people to say kind of where they're watching from, and we kind of can get like a mental map of things. It's fun for me. 1 million Buddhas. This is Paco Mark. Looks like I got to work just in time. What up, y'all? Hey, Mark.
Not much.
Hey, 1 million Buddhas. Brianna Burgess is here.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening. It's a wonderful day. It was a little cooler, a little rainier up here today than yesterday. Yesterday was a really excellent kind of day. I had a lot of time out in nature yesterday,
Awesome.
enjoying myself. So it's pretty fun. How's everything going for you, Don Zeno?
I can't complain, really. It's been great. You know, we had the eclipse at the beginning of the week, and now we're just all settling into that new energy that we were all a part of there. That amazing event. You know it really warmed my heart because I got to see all these people posting about it. And not just spiritually minded people,
Right.
you know, just people in general posting about how impactful it was, how much they enjoyed it, you know, how, you know, it was just such an interesting thing for them to experience. And that just really warmed my heart as a nature mystic because, you know, I really believe nature teaches us and is our greatest spiritual teacher. So just to hear people talking about that, and probably even more interesting to me was the people who are typically non-spiritual that are in my circle talking about it. You know, just hearing how it impacted them and how, you know, they just realized the importance of it. Not that eclipses are all that rare; we have them every year. But that, you know, one over North America like this is such a rare treat for us to have. And to just know that that's a once in a generation thing, you know. Yeah, you know, and many of us may not see the next time an eclipse happens over North America like that. And just to hear those people talking about that and how deeply moving that was for them. And I just, you know, that was just really amazing to me.
Tom Shuck says, where did Zane's body go? I just see a head. Zane doesn't need a body, Tom. Okay. That's Zane's just a floating head today. That's what happens. Post eclipse, Don Zeno turns into a floating head in hand.
That's what happens, man. You can't help it. It's just what happens. Sometimes I'm a body, sometimes I'm a head. Most of the time I'm a heart.
Moon Knight. Yeah, I loved the experience of that, to be there, and just like you're saying, and then even like I could really tap into and feel like the collective consciousness of like all the energy, people, beings, everything around, everything as the sun started to totally block itself out, everything got quiet, everything changed, all the frequency kind of changed. And it was like just the most still and beautiful moment. And like, all I did was cry. I just started crying because I was just so full of joy. But at the same time, I could feel all this stuff purging from me, stuff that I just don't need. I could feel. So for me, like in my perception of it, it's a phase shift. There's a change that happened. I watched as the two bodies passed each other. I could feel everything kind of shut off and then turn back on. It started to reinform things, and it started to reinform because me and Mary, we went into the woods. Like we weren't planning on going anywhere. We were just going to stay in the yard. But I started having intuitive hits like, hey, you got to go over to your park. I had to go over, you know, that park we've been to before, the Huntington Reservation. That's like my primary nature space where I'm at over here. Like, because before I got into shamanism, I was having interactions with nature beings and nature spirits there. So it's kind of like, I don't know what you'd call that, my home in some sort of way.
Yeah.
But so it called me there, and I was like, all right, you know, the way it's like everything was set up, it's like they expected like everything to be overrun with people, and it just wasn't. It wasn't like that. Like the home days and 4th of July around here is way more intense than how many people were out for the eclipse. Although there was plenty of people. There's lots and lots of people out. but they had like stuff blocked off and everything, and it just seemed really unnecessary. But we ended up, and what we're going to go do is go be with the crowd of people that were out in this grassy area that we normally kind of go to. But then as we were walking through the woods, we both got like stopped. We're like, oh, what is that? And so it was right by, there was a nice dead log, big log on the ground. And then there was another tree that was no longer alive and sticking up out of the ground. And you could feel it right away. Oh, it's an antenna. There's something going on here. So we're like, all right, let's just hang out here. So we sat down there. We got on we just sat on that log. And then we both had our mishas, pull out our mishas, ringing the bells, calling in spirit and everything. And it just was just more intense than normal. Everything was kind of coming in a little more intense. And then we just sat there, and like it was just it was like very surreal. Like it was very the way everything kind of felt. It just was like, wow, I've never really felt this kind of thing before. And you could just feel the shifting. Like I was very aware. I'm very aware of like quantum shifts, of shifts when frequencies of realities click. And there was all this clicking happening. All these clicks kind of went by. And it's like, it just kind of made me giggle, because I was like, wow, it's amazing that I can feel this. Like amazing that I'm able to connect with this and feel this in such a way, because I'm certain that the old versions of me of like, okay, it's an eclipse. Well, let's do something else. There's something like, but the significance of that and how it felt was just like kind of otherworldly. And for myself, it was a really big kind of shift. It was a really big, beautiful shift. And I felt really good the next day. But I'm also aware there's a bunch of other people that are having symptoms. There's the post eclipse symptoms that are kind of showing up. What do you think about that, Zane? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I don't have any. I don't have much to say about that in particular. You know, the biggest post-eclipse thing that I noticed with people is it's just like the December 21st, 2012 thing. You know, people build up so much expectation in these events, so much expectation, and they pour so much energy into it that when they don't get quite that much energy back from it, they don't get to see maybe the shifts or the changes, you know, that they were hoping for, and they get kind of let down, you know, and that's a really big thing. And, you know, like I reached out to everyone and gave them like a little simple kind of ceremony they could do during the eclipse if they wanted to, but also to tell everyone, you know, you don't have to do a ceremony for this eclipse thing. You know, that more important than anything else is for you to experience it, because it is something that in our area is a once in a lifetime sort of deal, maybe twice if you're lucky, you know, and to really sit there and to be part of it and to allow it to be whatever it wanted to be, to allow it to stand on its own terms. Of course, we see, and especially myself, I see this as a cosmic clock. It marking like a bookend of something that started in 1987 that is still building, and we're just stepped through one more door of it, one more envelope of it. And of course, we can use that energy, those that cosmic kind of reset energy. We can use that in our lives and create, you know, a type of magic to change something in our own lives, or to try to create positive change in the world. You know, one of the things that I was really asking people to do was to see what of their ideals can be grounded and manifested in this reality, and what ideals and ideas that they have are just fantasies that will never be manifested, so they can let go of that and quit putting energy into something that's unattainable at this time. And, you know, and to really focus on what is attainable. And, you know, I just really told everyone after the eclipse, I sent out another message, it just explaining, you know, when we set something up like that and magically, we have to remember that's not the end of it. That's the beginning. That's an initiation. You know, you don't just do magic and rely on the magic to do it all for you, or you will be sadly disappointed, because that's not the way it works. You have to go out there and do the work yourself. So, you know, I've told everyone, and I'm just going to use this platform right now to tell people, whatever you experienced on that day, whether it was just the awe of the moment that this is a once in a lifetime thing, and that you were with your family and friends, or that you were just observing this moment and taking it in for what it was, or you did a ceremony, or you noticed the cosmic shifts and all of that. Whatever your experience was of it, now how can you use that event to remind yourself every single day to be that new self, or to be that change you want to see in the world? Because that's all that was. That was one. It's like an alarm clock, is how I told everyone. An alarm clock doesn't make you get up. When the alarm goes off, it doesn't mean you have to get up, but it means it's a good time for you to get up and do something.
Signal.
So we did this. Whatever you did on that day, now use all these days to cement that in your life. Use all of this time now to see how you can bring that forward, how you can bring that change, or how you can bring and manifest that thing you wanted to see in this world, or how you can be that quality you experienced during the eclipse. Maybe it was just the awe. How can you bring more awe into the world? Use that event and make it meaningful. Use it to propel yourself forward.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. If you have a bunch of expectations, say I had none. I had zero expectations. I didn't even know where I was going outside, or like far away from my home. My original plan was I was going to stay here in my house and maybe start a fire or something. That was kind of the plan, until I actually had a session with a client just before that, just before the eclipse. And then I was like, I guess we got to go. We're supposed to go somewhere. So it was so wonderful to have the experience. Oh, I forgot to mention this part. This was the really amazing part. Me and Mary were really kind of stoked about this as we were sitting there, and as the moon was just about halfway, about half coverage coming in, one of the biggest hummingbirds I've ever seen came into one of the trees above us, way up at the top. And I was like, I wasn't sure at first. I asked her, I was like, do you see that? And she's like, yeah, that's a hummingbird. I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing. It was wonderful for it to show up, because in our tradition, it's like a beautiful thing for your hummingbirds to show up.
Absolutely.
So that was amazing. It was definitely one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. I almost feel, in a way, almost sad for anyone that didn't feel anything about it, like at least something. Like, I almost feel like, man, yeah, but I understand too, because there's lots of people, like, there's so much hype going on about it, like all these expectations, people saying it's going to be the rapture and it's going to be this, it's going to be that. What I would say is, how do you know it isn't? I mean, it just like I always say, it just started there. It's like the human mind has this idea that there's going to be this transition, which it was for me. Okay, for me, it was very powerful and transitional in that moment. Didn't expect for it to be at all. But I can also see how people are like, oh, well, I guess we dodged the bullet. The end of the world didn't come. And I was like, or did it? Did it come? Which one is it? Yeah.
I mean, obviously it came and it went. It's like a world did end right then. A world did end. Because we have, and every day is like that, honestly. Every moment's like that. Another moment, you will never have the last moment you had again, and you'll never arrive at the next moment, because the only moment that exists is right now, and it totally renews itself constantly. So we're never in the exact same place and space and time, even if we just look at that as cosmically. The Earth is really never exactly in the same place in space and time, because our galaxy and everything is just spiraling. But it's not just spiraling in a circle. It's spiraling throughout space, throughout all of time and space as we know it. So we're never in the exact same space twice. We're never in the same time twice. I understand people getting their expectations up. I mean, every one of these events. And this one was pretty spectacular just because we had just been anointed with a lunar eclipse, and then for people who are into the Holy Week thing, and I know some people are like, well, Holy Week was moved. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what week it falls on. I think if they did move it, good on them, because they moved it into a perfect spot to be just kind of like, bookended by these two eclipses, and to make that meaningful. And that's a beautiful thing to do, and I just think, I just think it was a really wonderful experience. And I understand some people might be let down, But in their letdown, that's part of this whole thing. That's them realizing what ideals aren't manifestable. We get all these downloads from the universe, but only some of them are useful at this time. Some of them can serve as inspiration for another time, but really only some of them can be manifested into this reality. And they can't usually be manifested the way they come in, because that's too high of a vibration. That's not where we're at in this reality. So we have to step the energy down so that it can be manifested here. And for all those people who are let down, maybe they just received the most important initiation of their entire life. They got to, they just entered the door of reality. And that's that's one of the big ones,
Yeah, because that's exactly kind of how I feel it. What happened is as I watched, I was talking about these two bodies go past each other. The sun disappears, the sun comes back. And how it felt to me is that there is a new level of frequency available. I can't read it all because I'm not tuned enough yet, but I'm aware it's there. I can sense it. So I'm like aware that the sun is projecting a higher frequency of consciousness to the planet, but you have to work on your availability to be able to contain it or take it. But that's kind of how you were just saying, is that's my awareness of it, is what I would say. It's like, yeah, well, that just started. All that happened is now there's a new light or a new frequency of consciousness that's available to everyone. And I'm pretty sure that's also what I can sense is driving some symptoms for people.
I'm sure, yeah.
A lot of the people that I see with symptoms are people that are on the path. These are people that are well into the path, well established into their awareness of themselves. And now it's like it's just in time for them to begin to make some sort of shift and change. I'm also aware of that this frequency also is putting some people deeper into their slumber. I'm aware of that too. But that has to happen, because if we're growing this way, other things have to grow the other way, because it's cosmic balance.
Yeah, right? Yeah, absolutely. And just the look at what we just went through, the full lunar eclipse during the new moon, or during the full moon, and the full solar eclipse going into the new moon energy. So with that lunar eclipse, the sun is being projected at the earth, and the earth's shadow is on the moon, which is the mirror of the sun. So the codes of the earth are being projected onto the moon. And then during the solar eclipse, the moon is in front of the sun like a lens, bringing in this new program. I just, the levels just go on. And I'm sure we could talk about it for the next 2 hours there.
Ad nauseum, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll probably unfold as we talked about it. I do want to open the floor for anybody that has any questions, comments. We're open to SOAR and talk about any sorts of things that maybe are on your life or in your mind.
Absolutely. It's always good to get comments or questions or suggestions.
Well, here is Tommy. He's just saying what I was saying. There's so much hype in the spiritual community on April 8th. I agree. I just kind of giggle. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I got to wait till it happens. I have feelings that there will be some sort of shift. I had really no idea what it was going to be. How it feels now feels really cool, though. I really enjoy it.
Absolutely. I much like you, I started crying during the eclipse. It was just such a moment.
Yeah, I was like just a crying baby, but the tears, it was like a whole different kind of crying. Like I cry pretty much every day. I mean, usually out of like just complete gratitude and happiness and just pure fulfillment of life. I cry when it hurts too, but it seems I more often than not. I went 22 years without being able to cry. 22 years. Wow. I try. Zane and I'd sit there, and like Mary, she's very loving kind of being and could help kind of pull some of it forward out of me. And it would start to rise, and my defense network would pop in. I just start laughing. It was so frustrating, though. It was, that was really like hell. That's what I would say is like, I love heaven because I came from hell. That was also around in those same times as when I was suffering from really severe insomnia. And I actually went one time, I went 22 days without any sleep at all. And according to medical books, you're only supposed to live 11. So I don't know how that's happened, but I made it. Yes.
Well, you know, it was one of those shifts.
Yes, I've seen it. Sleeping Beauty syndrome. Sleeping Beauty syndrome. That sounds really cool. I've been getting a lot of indigenous visuals of meditating and chanting. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of indigenous visuals? Like patternings or like indigenous people standing there talking to you? You know, the both are cool, but
Yeah, tell us more.
yeah.
Tell us more.
You know, that is something though we are kind of awakening, I think, back to the indigenous heart because every human's indigenous. There's no the human that isn't. Yeah, sure, the Europeans were colonized first, but that power and the that horrible hand of colonization, it was just as bad on the Europeans as it was on any other part of the world. You know, we sometimes think that it's just a European movement, and it's not. You will find that colonialism was happening in Asia too. You know, the empires there were colonizing people. The Inca Empire colonized people, but in a different way. They were like a co-op that asked you to join them, and they would never war against you because you didn't. But you know, colonization happened to everyone, and we're all. This is what, and I think that we're really kind of reclaiming our indigenous spirit at this point.
Yeah. He says mostly like I am indigenous and dancing by the fire.
Oh, you're remembering. Or
Oh, you're remembering. Yeah, that's it.
absolutely.
Yeah, I kind of see it that way too. It's kind of like even just like these ideas of extraterrestrial, like that. Here, I talk to beings that most people would say are aliens, but they're not to me. Everything's one thing and without separation. So I don't really have an idea of what extraterrestrial alien is anymore. Just like I have this really kind of blurred line about what's organic and non-organic, or nature and not nature. For me, everything is. I don't really see any separation from something man has created versus what was here before man got here. I see it all as kind of one thing. I mean, I understand there's some blurring of energy and lines there, but I think the biggest thing is the mind. The way we're trained is our mind is to create separation.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, exactly. And we are, you know, it goes back to the egocentric need of humanity to not be natural,
uh-huh.
to believe that we're something outside of nature. You know, it's because we're the ones that make up the rules. We're the ones that make up those titles, natural, synthetic. Humans created all of that, and it's all in humans' nature to do it. And that means that it was put here by nature because we are a result of nature. So we can't exactly be unnatural, and nothing we create can be unnatural. It can be unbalanced. You know, we can create something out of balance. It's just like petroleum, and we talk about the petroleum industries, and you know that really powered civilization in a very big way. And at that time, for humanity, where we were, it was the best technology we could have. And guess who gave it to us? Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one that knows all this chemistry. She
Mm-hmm.
gave us the understanding of how to do that. Now she's given us brand new understandings. We're just not listening because we're slow to change, and we've created whole economies around a certain thing. And we don't know how to just uproot that and transform it overnight. You know, humans are very slow animals to getting on board with things. And especially when people's livelihoods are at stake with all these things. It's not just as simple as saying, hey, we'll just tomorrow switch to this. You know, how do you put all that structure in place? Things have to move kind of slow because we're trying to take care of a whole planet of humans while
Mm-hmm.
taking care of a whole ecosystem, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say that, like, yeah. So what you're saying is like humans, they're slow. Historically, they're slow, but I believe that's beginning to shift and change, just like how, because nothing's kind of out of balance. So, like, it's kind of coming to a point now where, science is becoming more and more aware that they have absolutely no control over the growth of AI. And absolutely, they don't even know what it knows. They think they know. They don't know. They have no idea where it's at, where it stands as far as its deep intelligence or anything like that. It's kind of unknown. So as that's growing, I see that it's also a mirror of how humans are growing. It's fractal, so it's like it doubles itself. Starts off with 1, turns into 2, 2 turns into 4, 4 turns into 8, 8 turns into 16, so on and so forth. So I feel like it's rolling faster and faster, and kind of the way my connection with spirit has come through. They've showed me that in this form that we're calling human, we're pretty much the pinnacle of the planet, or of the Earth's nervous system. We're the most advanced part of the intelligence of this planet. It's just we're early, young, and dysfunctioned. We're remembering, oh yeah, that I'm part of this. And as that happens, we won't be destroying or depleting the Earth or anything around it. We'll be learning how to work with her, because that's what we're meant to do. That's why we're put here, is in that position to be able to evolve and adapt. Because that's the most amazing things, is human beings are some of the most adaptable things that exist. As far as I've seen, is just we don't use that. And it's not that anything's wrong. Everybody's like, this is wrong and this is bad. I kind of stay away from those mindsets. I stay more like, well, everything's the way it needs to be right now for it to grow. Just like even like with technology, you'll see people who are really against EVs or against electric vehicles because of what it takes in the current time to produce batteries. Mm-hmm. But what they're missing is by that happening, that's going to force a change in growth of technology that will surpass what is there now. And this takes us right back to one of my favorite leaders of all time, and that's Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla already discovered that we don't need any of these things to create electricity. It's already here. Before the ancient technologies existed long before that, before we were here. And that's going to change everything in some sort of sense. Mm-hmm. But it's that my understanding is that's what's happening. There's a very vast evolution that's happening within the human, not just human, just nature itself. Everything. And how it's starting to feel to me is where we're going, wherever we're at, we're starting to peak into somewhere where there's nobody knows. Our ancients, our ancestors, nobody knows where it is that we're going, because wherever we're headed now is somewhere that hasn't happened, something that's new.
Yeah, it's they've left a map for us, and the map takes us right up to the door. Mm-hmm. But like all of the prophecies of the Americas, and I believe that the prophecies of the Americas teaches us something about how to view the other prophecies of the world. But the prophecies of the Americas are all what if prophecies. Mm-hmm. In other words, if this, then this. Mm-hmm. And you can keep going down that line. If this, then this, then this. And then all of a sudden, maybe humanity chooses something totally different. And then those prophecies, they still are just as important, but not for the time you're in now, for the time you'll be in another time. For another, because we get that's the thing. We get a great amount of choice in this, mm-hmm. in where we're moving and where we're going. And it's everyone's responsibility, even the people who think, oh no, I'd have no power in this. Just that thought is their vote, is them lending their energy toward one view or another view. And it's not even about which view is right, because we got to get beyond that stuff. There is no right view. There is just the now, like you were saying. And as we just start to look into that, we start to take back our power and realize it's about us choosing now. Now, these are the scenarios. Who do I want to be? What kind of world do I want to lead? These are the important questions. Everything else is unimportant. If we quote unquote destroy the world, well, number one, we couldn't do it unless the world wants it, because we are her. So if we went down that path, then that was what we were supposed to do. But as my indigenous teachers would say, you can't hurt the earth. She's bigger than you. If you became a problem, she'd shake you off like a bad case of fleas and go on. Obviously, we're not a problem yet. So
yeah, and then it's also the mental construct of time. Like, well, if there was a problem, something would happen already. Well, you just don't see it happening. It's happening at a rate in which you can't perceive or understand. There's always some sort of change. I also have a way of looking at everything as nothing can happen that's not meant to happen. It has to. If it happened, if it's here and it's happened, that's what's had to happen. It can't happen any other way than it is. So that's the acceptance of isness for me, or the acceptance of the present moment without any resistance to it whatsoever. And that's where most people don't really go. Like, I'm a big proponent of saying there's no bad energy, there's no good energy, there's just energy. It's your judgment of it. Just like we've talked about this before. The universe doesn't make junk. God doesn't make mistakes. Humans make judgments. And why is that? Why do we make those judgments? Because the ego has expectations of what perfect should be. I don't agree with imperfect either. That drives people nuts. It drives people absolutely crazy when you can't agree with, hey, it's imperfect. Well, it's just not for me. You know, I choose not to place my attention there because I'm highly aware of energy. I'm highly aware of how that works. So I know if I'm putting my attention in that direction of imperfection, I am creating it. For I am the creator of this reality. Whatever I'm perceiving is happening in me, just like it's happening in you. Where's your world happening? Happens inside you. That's where it's at.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, what is happening to us on a global level or on a societal level is one thing. And we could decide it's good or bad or whatever we want to decide. But the real importance is less it and what do you do about it? Who do you want to be in the face of that power? Who is the type of person you want to be? And, you know, sometimes you live up to your ideals, sometimes you don't. And that's okay too, because that's natural. And, you know, that's really where we're at right now. If there's something that we need to complain about, like I was saying earlier, I'm the first one that I'm more than happy to complain about something. It can create an opening to manifest something better. But if all I'm doing is complaining and going down a rabbit hole of complaints, and I've seen this, especially in our generation, the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, we can get really, really apathetic, but we can also get very, very doomsday. And we can start to think that, oh, we have to be out there and we have to meet fire with fire. And sometimes you do. Sometimes that's the case. But, you know, who do you want to be? And if what's going on out there and the way that you want to change it is going to turn you in to the very thing you're trying to change, are you really, how are you going, how's that work really? I mean, you cannot create positive change with a corrupted core. You can't use the what you're seeing as corruption to move forward with something positive.
That's because the universe is just responding to your frequency. If this is God or the universe or however one sees it, it doesn't know good or bad. It just responds to your frequency, your vibration. So it just comes to even I can't complain. Well, yeah, you could, and when you do, like you were just saying, it's very rare. It's very rare and few in between that when we're in a space of complaining, that we're doing it from a standpoint or a vibration that's actually helpful.
Yeah, I'm searching for an answer. If I'm complaining, I'm really questioning. It's not just complaining to vent, though that's all right. And when people need to vent. And that's one of the things that the shaman is for, is to create a safe container where people can vent and not feel judged for their venting. But, if we're really going to, it's about solutions. And if you don't have a solution to offer, then it's about questioning to see if someone else has a solution. Because just complaining for the sake of complaining is counterproductive in all directions.
Sure. Because soon as you start complaining, okay, what happens? The first thing that happens is you move into a victim's mindset. You're in a victimhood mindset. As soon as you're in a victim mindset, you've now lost your power to change because you've externalized. You've externalized your ability to change. But that's what we need to see more of, is people questioning, what's the solution? What's mostly happening here in this time, and even more so, is more finger pointing. It's just blame. It's just fault. And fault is this amazing thing, this amazing energy. And I love to work with it when I work with couples. So when I do couples therapies, that's usually what happens. So like you said, I create the container for them to complain and bitch about each other. So they can sit there and start going at that. And I listen and let them go through it. And then it gets to a certain point. And I was like, okay, so we're here. There's a lot of blame. It's your fault and your fault. I was like, so what if this happens? What if I take all the blame? What if it's all mine now? It's all mine now and you can't have it. And I removed all the blame from what's going on. Now what do we do? Now we're asking, now what do we do? Because instead of something, it's your fault, and I don't think you're assuming enough accountability for this fault. Everybody's trying to push accountability on each other. And that's the weirdest thing, because accountability isn't for anyone else. It's for you. That's what it's for. Are you accountable? Not, am I accountable enough to appease you? That's what's happening in the world. Like, well, you're not accountable. Well, you don't get to decide that. That's not up to you.
Yeah, we look at the world and we see corruption in it, because there is corruption going
Sure.
on. But we created the container for that corruption by projecting our own responsibility and power onto something else. We created systems so that we personally didn't have to carry the responsibility of the community. So we created governments, we created different types of systems. Now, for them to have any power at all, they have to be amoral. They're not moralistic. They have to be outside of morals. So when you put officials and stuff on a pedestal and you tell them that they can be above the sacred law of the universe, and you can tell them that they have the power to enforce these rules and stuff, you set them up to be corrupt. You're asking them to take power that's not theirs, that's yours, because you don't want the responsibility of it. And that's why I always say, yeah, it's important to vote people in that you feel you connected to. That's all important. But more important than any of that, start to think about solutions you can make for the things you're hoping the government will make solutions for. Don't leave it to them. Do it in your own community. Do it in your field of influence. If you really feel it needs, there needs to be a change with that. If you feel like homelessness is a problem, try to find a local solution for the homeless in your community. And if everyone started to do that in the world, that would create more positive change than projecting our power onto deaf, dumb, and blind systems that we set up to be corrupt, because that's the only way they could be powerful enough to do anything.
I think it's a big thing to understand that the current systems in place are incapable of being able to have the capacity to hold the level of consciousness that is rising on the planet. So it's understanding that we can't use these old systems. We can't rely on these old systems anymore because they're obsolete. They no longer work for where we're headed and what we're doing. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they're blaming, will the government do this? Like I saw, what was the meme I saw today? It was like, we can all get together to watch an eclipse, but we can't fight the government. I'm like, well, that's not going to work for you. If you're trying to fight it, what we need to create, we need to make something new is what needs to happen. Here's something good. Tom says, appreciate having more of our role, as Paco's explained. So he's talking about, like we're talking about creating that space, that container. Also, I think one of people kind of asked that, something that came through when he said that was, and always sticks with me, is the whole idea is to become a perfect absorber and radiator of light, to be able to absorb.
And especially in our tradition, of all energies, not just light energy, but dark energy as well, to be able to see the usefulness in Hucha, which is something that can lead to all kinds of problems in the world. It can lead to illnesses. It can lead to all kinds of stuff. But to understand how to use it to the advantage of life, because it's not junk energy. Once again, it's not icky. It's not polluted. It's nothing like that. And those are the concepts that keep us from being able to touch it, because the concept of negative originally, I mean, anyone who's worked with electricity knows negative. That you have to have both for a current to happen. But we, around the time of the Dark Ages, when Christianity started to enter into Europe, that is when negative got equated with evil. Right. It was never equated like that before that period of time of the Dark Ages. But in the Dark Ages, why were they dark? Because the old knowledge got lost, got burnt, got destroyed. And so everything had to be put into a new light. So now the old understanding of what negative was got replaced with evil. And the narrative about evil is it leads to death, and it will destroy you. So if I think something has a negative charge to it, I'm not going to touch it, because our new concept of negative is it will take something from me that's mine and I can't get back. It will take my life. It will take my happiness. It will take all these things. And as long as we uphold that idea, we can't touch those heavier energies, and we can't learn how to reorganize their patterns to make use of them, because they are useful energies. And some people, there's some business owners out there and stuff that thrive on Hucha, and they built entire successful empires from Hucha and from a Hucha-based place, because they know how to use it and then let it go. They don't just hold on to it and let it drag them down. They know when it's useful. It's just like an anchor of a ship. There's times you need to stop your ship and you need to stay in one place. Well, you can't do that without that big anchor of Hucha to throw it over and let go into the waters. That's what holds your ship there. And you know, for in our culture, we're so polarized. Things are right or wrong, black or white,
good or bad.
And I've had so many friends who they just can't get on board with shades of gray. That things could be in between, and that it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other, because then you're picking something. Oh, I did something dark, now that means I'm dark and I have to be dark forever, and now I have to make it my personality. No, we can change. We have the right to change. And it doesn't matter how you live your life. You know, the Paco's view is, even if you're a corrupted individual that lives your life terribly, you still have just as much right to connect with the divine to improve the quality of your life, because that is part of life. That is your birthright, is that you can step into the quality of a saint, no matter how deep of a sinner you are. You can step in at a moment and decide to be a saint, even if you don't decide to stay there. The universe isn't going to judge you.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's true, though. I mean, definitely, it's the polarization of making, because when your mind makes something bad, it separates you from it. Now you're in denial of it. It's the misunderstanding that everything is one, everything is part of you. The thing even that you're judging as evil is a mirror of something happening inside, not so much what's happening outside.
It is we project that. That's why I take issue with people talking about reality as an illusion. Reality is not an illusion. We have a consensus reality. The reality is what the illusion is what we project from our inner worlds out, because we don't see clearly the outer world. You know, and we now understand this, that this outer world that you think you're seeing, you're manufacturing it in your head. Your nerves are giving it meaning. It's a computer, that it's this, that is that. Now, it doesn't mean that it isn't those things, but what's important is that happens internally, not externally. So our experience of the external is completely colored by our internal world.
Yeah. So when it comes to like the reality is an illusion, the way I understand that is it's not meat and bones like you think it is, like we've been trained. That's the experience we're having through the nervous system. And what's important is not that, because that's going to continue to grow as more AI comes forward and can explain more about quantum physics. It's going to become more and more known that everything we're perceiving as reality is waves of light and information. We get to experience those as physical, solid things through the interpretation that happens in this interface we have as a nervous system. But that doesn't make it unreal. Right? Like it's real because the experience is real. And that's what's really important. It's not how it got here. Anything can be explained and related away. Science loves to do that. Before they knew and it could explain it in these kinds of words, it was just understood in a different way and accepted in a different way. But what happens is for the mind, that modern mind, it's going to put a lot of people in despair, because they're going to say, well, what do you mean? This isn't real? No, it's just as real as it's always been. It's not changed in any sort of way. Your perception of it may change, but the thing is it's still the experience is what's real. And that's really why we're here anyways, is to have the experience. And that's because what is real anyways? You know, real is an interpretation. The experience is the only thing you're going to take with you from this place.
And I want to go back to Tom's question just for a moment. You know, the role of the Paco, especially in the modern world that we're living and in these times. Well, number one, the Paco's role is to connect with nature. Is primarily to develop relationships with the nature spirits, with the tradition, and In a big sense, that's our biggest thing to do at all times. But there's two different types of Pacos. There's what we call the Pampa Masayok, which is some say that the one that sits at the low table. And we have to understand that low and high in this sense has nothing to do with the English understanding of something being higher or lower.
Greater, it's not greater or less than.
No, it's that the Pampa Masayok's job is to connect the community with nature, with Earth herself, and to do ceremonies and stuff that help you to align with the cycles of nature and to move with those cycles of nature. And that's one of their biggest jobs, where the Alto Masayok's job is how to take that high celestial, high vibrational light of the universe and step it down so that it can be functional in the reality we're in. That's the Alto Masayok's job. So in that way, they're anchoring the higher light codes, perhaps if you want to use that language, into the earth. But they do that through the filter of themselves by stepping it down through their energy vibration so that people can really accept it and connect with it. So it depends on what priest you are. And there's not a higher or a lower priest. They're just two different talents, and we need both of them.
Yep.
Both are needed for the expression of the whole. Because we're saying that eventually the lower world and the upper world will spill out through the middle world. And that will bring in a whole new way of being when the shadow and the light come out and are manifested and projected equally through or embodied by the people on the planet. That will create a whole different change. And we have many different prophecies around it. Some of them say the stars will change. They will move. And as we know through the precession of equinoxes, stars have changed. One of old friend Ross Hamilton, his whole idea is that Serpent Mound was built at a time when Draco was right above Serpent Mound. And we can go back and we can find when that constellation used to appear right above Serpent Mound. And we can say, oh, and he pinpoints, well, that's when this mound was created or when it was started, was during that epoch, whenever that was. And we know that, just like we were talking about before, we are falling through space. We are spiraling through space. Our solar system has one spiral. Our galaxy has another spiral. The entire universe has another spiral as we know it. And it's falling through an infinitude. And we're never in the same place exactly twice, And of course, what is our roles in this time? To be the best we can be, to use our connection with nature to help us to become who we want to be in every situation, or as close to that as possible.
Yeah, another way I would say it is refinement of frequency. Something was showing itself to me as we were talking about Pampa Masayoks and Alto Masayoks and how it's necessary for the cosmic balance, because the rituals and understanding and medicine of the Pampa Masayok kind of teaches you everything within the bubble and within the earth. The earth is like part of the bubble. And as the Alto goes outside the bubble and then has to step energy down to create coherence into the bubble. Like it's almost like a transformer. It's a step down the layers of energy field into there, and then they intermix together, and that makes a unified kind of energy, bringing that lower world and upper world together, putting everything together.
Absolutely. And many of the Alto Masayoks end up training with Pampa Masayoks because it's important to get that other view of things, to get that other way of seeing things, because sometimes the Pampa Masayok has to do the Alto Masayok's job. Sometimes the Alto Masayok has to do the Pampa Masayok's job. So we're training each other. We're helping each other to be more, to be better at what we do. And it's a perfect thing. Many people see it as these levels. The high priest is higher than the low priest. And in our tradition, it's not like that. It's where do you align? Where does your energy align on this spectrum?
Mm-hmm.
And then can you honor where your energy aligns? Instead of wanting to be the other, can you be okay with being what you are?
Mm-hmm.
And can you fully embody what you are because you love it and because you're like, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I bring forward. And when we're outside of that balance, we become very fragile. Our
Yeah.
energy becomes fragile. Our identity becomes fragile. It's something so beautiful to know where you fit, and then to say, I fit here well. I fit here best, and let me work at the level that I can work at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that takes me, it was kind of showing me about how kind of like these ideas that are implanted to us, like something's above or below, when no one thing is above nor below the next. Like not one priest is greater than the next. We're all parts of a living organism, and we're all meant to have like a fingerprint. We all have a very unique way in which the frequencies of the universe move through us and work through us. And that's as we going down this journey, as we're opening up into there, our divine intelligence continues to open and grow. And then we begin to be able to work together in ways that we yet don't understand, because of the conditioning of the human mind. But it will take us into, as we become more one with nature. And, and I like to explain, nature isn't just trees and flowers and water. For me, nature is everything, even what you don't see. Even the empty space that's around us is also nature. And that's ultimately what the idea is to become refined in a way where you're working with all of nature at once. Something else that came through. Have you ever seen like the universe? Or not the universe, but our solar system. The way like they teach it to you in school is like, here's the sun, it sits still. And then there's these planets that kind of loaf around really slow around. But that's not what's happening at all. It's helical. We're actually like in a tail, a dust cloud behind this giant star that's kind of propelling itself through space. So that's something cool. If anybody's ever seen that, go online and look for a helical representation of our solar system. Because it's really amazing to watch, because it changes your perspective. Because my whole time growing up, it's how they showed this big giant yellow sun, and then these little planets just kind of farting around, going around this planet, when it's all moving so much faster, jetting through like space. It's just moving through space. And like you said, it's never in the same place, because it can't be. Because the truth is what we're calling time isn't time at all. We're consistently experiencing new frequency vibrations of being. That's why in the deeper levels of understanding, all time is now. And part of being a shaman, part of being able to have that relationship with frequency, is your ability to be able to journey, to leave what you think is now and go into a past, or have even like prophecy. What is prophecy really? That's a seeing of a potential outcome. That doesn't mean that prophecy that we're reading is the outcome of this general reality in which we're in, but it's a potential is what's happening. Because even so, that's why some prophecies are off. They're not right on the money, but they're close, because it's a neighboring reality that's coming through.
Yeah, like I said, they're all what ifs. If all this criteria is true, it's like code in a computer. If all this criteria is true, then this is the outcome, or this is the way to handle that. This is the code for that. But if all these criteria are not true, if all this doesn't say yes, then it skews the whole thing. And that's what we're always waiting for with prophecy, is to see when the majority of the things are correct. And the whole thing is, prophecies are not about doom and gloom. Prophecies are about, how do we become something great? How do we become something more beautiful? Maybe that's a better way to say it. How do we beautify what we are? And we know that at certain moments in time, when certain types of criteria present itself, humanity has trouble remembering its divinity in those moments. So all these prophecies are guidebooks to remind us, in these moments, this is what you can do. And especially with like the income prophecy, one of the things that is its true statement, it's what if this, then this, is when humanity reaches beyond its spiritual adolescence. That is the criteria within the Inca prophecy. There's other criterias, but the big thing is no matter how many times we get to the spot where we could have the potential to start a golden age, we know that the next golden age will start when humanity itself has entered its spiritual adulthood. And that can mean all kinds of things. It doesn't mean that you're spiritual. It doesn't mean that you're sitting there meditating 4 hours a day. It could mean that you've just found meaning again in reality, purpose again, that we're not just a bunch of random things bouncing around creating nonsense, that there is a real meaning and drive behind it. And that is our spiritual adulthood, is to understand and to bring meaning back to life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Magical Mike's here. A Nike, he
Mike.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I do want to open the floor. Anybody who's watching, if you have anything that you want to comment or ask a question about, we're open to that. We want to open that up to be able for discussion. Discussions are fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm just going to keep going back to Tom's question because it's a great question.
I love that question.
It's a loaded question. It's beautiful. Really, that's one of the steps in the Paco path is beautifying the world around us, is making things more beautiful by looking and seeing the impersonal beauty of nature. And how do we emulate that in our day-to-day life? How do we make things more beautiful in our environment? It might just be going upstairs and cleaning your house. That might be all it really is. But just by you doing that, you have cleared up an energy. Or maybe it's beautiful poetic words that you and only you can create in this reality, or a painting that you can create, or something you do in the garden. It doesn't matter. But as we bring more beauty, as we find what's beautiful inside of ourselves, and we start to offer it outside of ourselves, that's the part of the Paco's role. That's part of our job. And it's not about anyone even knowing you're a Paco. They don't have to know. It's none of their business. We're not trying to convert anyone here. We don't need more. We don't need more, but we just need the ones that feel called to that path to have the opportunity to enter it. And that's it. It doesn't matter. We're all, like I said, we're reaching our spiritual adulthood. It started at the time of Freud and Carl Jung. When they went, things were being thrown to the wind. Mysticism and all that had been destroyed, and they gave a new container for it. They gave us a new way to explore things that was less scary because we were able to create a working model for it, a beautiful working model that they put together. And I really believe that is when humanity entered its spiritual adulthood. You can see it as we started to enter that at the time that Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud were creating their theories. They were a reaction to humanity reaching that point. But there were people who had reached that point way in the past. There have always been great people. There have always been people who have stepped into those roles. But now we're doing it more as a global community.
Yeah, I definitely can see that because just even like how we were talking about before, what put these ideas and structures inside of Carl Jung's mind, and what did these things? Nature did. Nature put these things here on purpose for us to be able to grow and expand.
Absolutely, yeah. We are nature, and she's a loving mother. She doesn't give us too much. She doesn't give us too little. She gives us what we can handle at that time. And then, like a loving mother, she watches us play around with it and try to figure it out. It isn't about something coming in. We don't need an intimidating God. We don't need an intimidating force that's going to come in and set and put everything right. Because anything that comes in and does that is going to seed the sows of this, sow the seeds of dissent into whatever it creates. Just like we were saying, you can't take something like that and create something out of it. All you can do is to move forward, learn from it, learn to reorganize this energy, and then move forward with it.
Right. That's the word, is reorganize. It's like that's exactly what's happening. It's happening from the inside of us out. That's what's happening to us as we go down our journeys and down our paths. What's happening? We're taking apart stuff inside of us and putting it back together in a way that actually works, that actually is productive within us in some sort of way. And that's the same thing that has to happen, like how we're talking about, with just the general consciousness, and then even the control structures in which people are seeing as the control of the world. It can begin to change, but that's the thing I always point to, is everybody wants to change the world, but not too many people want to change themselves. And that's where it begins, because if you're not radiating change from you, how are you going to help make that happen? You're
Absolutely.
not.
You're right. And one of the things that I always say with all of that is it worth the sacrifice? Really, that's what you have to look at when you're saying, oh, I want this to change. Is it worth you sacrificing your comfort now if you don't get to enjoy the change it creates? If it's 4 generations from you, if it's your great grandchildren that may have a chance, people you've never met, or your great grandchildren, people who were born by people you never met. Is it worth it to make their lives better? Will you sacrifice comfort today for that? And if you won't, then it's not a reliable dream to go after, because it can't be manifested. It can't happen because we aren't willing to do the work for it. So let's come up with a different dream. Let's quit creating dreams that we can't manifest and create the dreams that will put our energy behind. So ask yourself, yeah, you want to see the world change, but do you want to see it change for you or for humanity? And if it's not worth your sacrifice today for someone else to have it in the future, then let's let that dream die, because it's not serving us anymore. And let's dream something better, something that will actually put our energy behind. And maybe if we do that, 7 generations from now, we will have created the proper scenario that they could dream the impossible dream we had today, that they could bring that into manifestation. That's really the whole thing. It's not about us living today.
Right. Yeah, we're part of a living organism. That's how, that my complete understanding is that. And when you're asking those words, like, are you willing to? Yes, it's always yes for me. It's always yes. It's always the bigger picture is what it's more about. It's not about it's not just about me. It's not just about who is me. Me is the ego self, the thing that thinks it's Anthony. Which is very temporary. It's going to come, it's going to go. It doesn't mean I'm not here to observe that and enjoy that in its time. That's precisely what I'm here to do, is figure out how to enjoy that and use that and create from there. Because for me, what I say is all is one living creation. We are creation itself. You, me, and everything else, not just people. Everything is part of creation, and it grows from within inside of us. And that's precisely exactly what I would say is you want to focus on. Even people, like I try to bring up sometimes for people that are having a hard time sticking to trying to make change in their life. And then sometimes it changes for them when you say, well, what if it's not just about you? If you're having a hard time showing up because you're not having it in you to show up to do the things that you really want and need to do, if you look at it at a bigger picture and you realize that when you're doing the best you can to change, it's not just for you, it's for everyone and everything. Your children, your children's children, your children's children's children. Just like you said, I've said the same thing for people that you will never meet, for people that will bear children that you will never know. But you're creating, and that's my understanding, is that's what's happening. I see everything as a living nervous system. Everything is a neural network. And as we continue to work and change and grow and evolve, we're creating potential for others to be able to ride that path. Just like when we do the inner work, when we're doing our shadow work, when we're taking the shadow apart, it's not just about my shadow and just your shadow. It's about us creating energetic pathways for people to be able to transform without having to go through all the shit we have. Yeah. It creates a whole new capacity of like neural learning across the entire network.
Yep. And it's about us getting beyond shame and guilt as well.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of shame and guilt when we don't live up to something.
Yeah.
And part of being a good healer is seeing the different ways things could turn out. Mm-hmm. And if our client is not wanting us to hold a map to a certain destination anymore, then we let that map go. We, that's part of our job is if they, what we're really trying to do is get them toward the vision that they can actually step into. And if they're not going to do the work to step into it, then it's not even a vision worth holding on to. It's not even worth me putting my energy into seeing it and holding a map to it. I look at my client and I say, okay, that's not you. That's where you thought you wanted to go. That's not where you want to go anymore. So let's throw that away so that doesn't weigh you down on your journey. Let's get rid of that old destination you thought you wanted, and let's put a new one there. And let's replace it with something that you will be able to step into, because we're talking about bell curves of probability.
Right.
And to hit that 2% bell curve, instead of that 90%, to hit that 2%, you have to do all these things to change your movement through time. And if you're not willing to do all those things, well, let's not shoot for that 2% outcome. Let's shoot for the 4%. Let's shoot for the 50%, because maybe you'll be able to put the effort into that, and that will be authentic to you. We don't want our clients doing something that isn't authentic. That's why I there's kind of this thing that happens to us where we can see the highest potential of someone. And it's kind of the sadness of the shaman, is to be with a client and see that they could be this great business owner, or they could be this great philanthropist, but to look at them and know that they never can, that they have the potential, but it's not even worth telling them about that potential, because telling them about it is cursing them with it. It's cursing them with something they'll never live up to. And our job is to empower them to what they will live up to, not curse them with a potential that they have, but will never touch. That's stepping down the energy. That's part of the Alto Messiah's job. See the vision and then step it down so that it can be manifested. And I've said that a lot today, so that must be important. I've been saying that for like the last 2 weeks, actually. That must be something important I'm catching here.
You are. Yeah, no doubt. That's kind of in line with adaptability. Like if you have some sort of idea or plan, allowing yourself, like I said earlier, humans are the most adaptable things around. And that's the thing. We don't use that. Instead of, like we say, like manifestation. Your manifestation begins with a vision. It begins with an idea, a feeling, trying to turn that into a feeling. That doesn't mean you're going to end up just how it looks. It's just putting you in a probability of moving in that direction. But as you move in that direction, it can totally change. You're able to evolve and adapt. And whatever you think the outcome is supposed to be, try not to get caught up on that, because it never goes where you want it to. Reality takes you where you need to go if you're open to allow it to happen. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how people, they move into things. We're asking spirit, bring me blessings and help me to change and help me to grow. And then the opportunities show up and we're like, that's not the right opportunity. It shows up. We're discounting these things that even are in, because within it, there's discomfort often. There's often a form of discomfort because something in you has to change. Something within your frequency has to change. So something shows up and it's going to challenge you in some sort of way. But we often are like, I don't want that challenge. It should just be easy. It should just, which sometimes it is, but it usually isn't. That's not how it's designed. By design, it doesn't really work that way.
I was just talking with one of our dear friends earlier today, and I was talking about breath work and the breath work that I've done. And how I got to the place where I realized one day that I had been nonstop circular breathing for years, and that I had retrained my entire body to circular breathe. And this is something that I wanted. There's a lot of benefits to circular breathing. It puts you into a bliss state. It does all these things. And I told them, and once I realized that I had been circular breathing for years, I purposefully started working on stopping. And they asked why. And I said, because I don't want it to just always be an automatic thing. I want to know that I'm in control of it. I want to know, I don't just want to set it up as a habit. I want to be aware of the things I do. So, sometimes I do that. I'll change hands. I've always done a ceremony this way. Well, I'm going to throw a wrench in it and do it this way, because that helps me grow. That helps me see things from a different perspective. I always uncork your energy center with a spiral. Well, today I'm going to uncork it by drawing a flower around it. Yeah. Seeing the flower bloom, because all of that, it doesn't matter. But what is beautiful is to give yourself a new stimulus, to give yourself something new to do, to test yourself. Maybe you find, maybe I do like it that way. But the thing is, I don't want to have trouble pausing my breath. Yeah, I understand that moments of stress are going on when you just find yourself suddenly holding your breath. A lot of times, if you're not doing that from a conscious state for a conscious reason, you'll find that something stressful is going on in your life, and you just stop the life force, the breathing in and out, to deal with that stressful thing. And I just didn't want to be in a place where I couldn't create a pause in my breath if I wanted to, where I couldn't stop my breathing and fall into that space, because that space is important too. It's not there's just one way. There's no junk in the world. There's a purpose for the pause between breaths, just like there's a purpose for the breathing without a pause, and to know what each is, and to have the ability to choose which one's best for this moment right now, which one's best for me right now, that I can consciously it's not even control, it's that aware, that I can consciously be aware of.
Well, part of that's your need, your call from your higher self for neural adaptability. Just like when you're changing things up, I'm huge about that. Like
I know you are. We've talked about it.
I do not drive the same way home. I don't do the same things. I'm not a creature of habit. I really try to get away from it, because gosh, that just gets boring. That just shows you how mindless your life is, because you're just going through it. You're just totally just taken away. Like, I have to do it this way. If not, it's not right. And all these things happen. I love for it to be different. I love to have no idea what's going to happen. Like, great, this is what's going to happen. I don't know. Or like, I'm sure it happens to you too. How many people come to you like, so I want to do a session with you. What does that look like? Well, I'm not sure. It's going to be however you show up, because it's not about me. I don't have like a script that I follow where it's like, well, check. I'm not like your doctor. I'm not going to check all your symptoms and everything. I'm going to sit down with you. And what's going to happen is we're going to begin to open sacred space. And I'm going to begin to, as you loosen up and allow me into your space, I'm going to be able to come into your space, into your bubble. And we're going to start to communicating beyond our physical words. And a different sort of communication comes. I don't know what that is. Often I'm surprised, even when I'm teaching classes. I watched it happen to you before. I've seen it happen where, there's some background kind of idea that's running, but whatever comes through, or you jump totally off that path because it's guiding you in some other way, because you're aware somebody in the group needs that. Oh, that's coming there. Or you're working with someone. Can't tell you how many times, especially in more of the beginning, I'm sitting there worrying, like, how am I going to help this person? I don't know what to do for them. And it's like, wait, relax. You're not supposed to know. Yeah. It will happen on its own if you just allow yourself to be open and have faith that it's there. If you know it's there, it's going to show up how it needs to show up. Don't worry. It's okay.
Absolutely. And and the whole thing is, it's none of your business as the healer, really, how it does show up. It's just like, I don't ask people how they are after my sessions. If they volunteer how they're doing and they give me an experience, I know that's important for me to hear. I know that's important for me to, if I have an authentic response to it, to respond to it, because that's part of their healing or part of whatever you just did in the session. But I don't ask anymore, because it's none of my business what they went through. And I don't sit there and go, oh, this person, they'll write me sometimes and they'll say, I want this session because this is going on in my life. Well, you want to know the truth? If I feel called and that I can help you, I'll say yes. If I don't, I'll say no. But I don't care what's going on. That's the whole thing. I will ask you that in the session, but I don't need to know beforehand. And one thing I'm not going to do is sit there and ask myself, what am I going to do for them? What am I going to do for them? Because that's not where I want to be. And I'm not going to sit there and question. Of course, it comes up every once in a while. It'll go through your consciousness. Sure. I got this session tomorrow. I wonder what we'll do. And then I always quiet that. And afterward, I try not to think about how their session was. I rely on them and the universe. It's their responsibility if they want to tell me something about their session. It's their responsibility if they want to have a dialogue about that. But I have people who come to me that won't tell me anything that's going on with them. And guess what? I don't need to know to help them. And I don't need to know how it's helped them. And everything happens on its own time. But in the early days of my work, I wanted to know, how are you feeling now? How's that different than how you felt before?
Yeah.
You know, but really, that's none of I've realized through the
And
years.
then you got to ask yourself, why did I need to know? Well, for my own validation. That's why I need to know. Because what you're saying, I'm right on board with that. I find myself not really asking too much unless it calls to me. Like if I feel like they want to say, but I didn't ask, so they don't. I'm like, how do you feel? And I won't ask anything else, just that. How do you feel?
Now, it's very important if they have a story to tell you that you listen to the story. And that's something I've seen with a lot of healers. They learn something like reframing. And I talk about this a lot. You've heard me say it before.
Yeah.
And they learn how powerful it is. And then they decide, oh, pattern interrupt and reframing. And that is one of the most disrespectful things you can do to a client, especially a new client, because it's basically you sending out the information. I don't care what's going on with you.
Right.
And that shuts them energetically down. It's important to hear their story. If they have a story to tell and they feel called to telling, and really, I've had complete healings happen where all I did was sit and be receptive and listen. And I did nothing else. And just that receptivity created all of the change they needed in their life.
Yeah, that's something I've completely noticed is I love to use reframing tools, but what they don't really work with usually is new clients or people who aren't there yet. They seem to work so much better with people that have already been doing the work and are receptive to the reprogramming, the reframing, without it interrupting their story. Because this is usually after this, because I'm a big proponent. I want to hear your story. I want to hear that. I want to hear what's going on. I want you to spill all that out. I want to hear about your problems, what's wrong, what you're complaining about, what your limitations are. But what I don't want to do is revisit that every time we have a session. Some people try to do that, and that's what they're looking for is, I just need you to listen to me complain. So for me, the way it works for me is I want to hear about all those things. I want to hear about your problems. But then after that, we're going to seek solutions. And if that's not something you want to do, you're just not for my hands. Another shaman can help you, because each one of us kind of has our own song that we sing, a way that we interact with people. Some of us are more gentle. I'm not a very gentle kind of healer most of the time. Most of the time, the people that come to me are people that are looking for a break. They're looking for a way, some way that their mind can change that they couldn't see before. Something that can pop up. And sometimes that's all it takes is when you can help someone, you're totally aware of what's going on, and the words kind of come through you. And next thing you know, they're having their own. That's the most important thing for someone during reframing is they believe that the idea came to them on their own.
Absolutely.
That's what's really important is for that psychology to work. It works so much better than telling someone, than trying to lead them through questioning sometimes. Sometimes the questions or just the listening, that's the best part about when you're working with someone and just listening. Sometimes as they're talking, they go, oh, they start to see in their story, it reflects back on them, and you're holding that space for them, and it begins to reflect back. And now they can see, oh, they become aware of their patterns better than you're able to convey to them or project to them their patterning.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You hit all the nails on the head. I mean, that's really what it's about is, see, reframing is powerful. If someone comes to me and they have something they have to do right now, and they're not able to do it, that's when reframing is useful. If they're going to take action right now, right this minute, in 5 minutes, an hour, reframing is useful in that scenario. I find it completely unuseful in most any other type of scenario because it's like an organ transplant. You have transplanted a thought into their head. Right. They're now able to run with that thought. But given time, if they don't take action immediately, their mind will reject the thought. Because limiting beliefs and stuff are not the problem. Everyone thinks they are. They're a manifestation of the problem. If you cure one, another one will jump up in its place. You know, and that's just how that works. And I, like you, I like to see them come to their own reframe. And that's not an organ transplant. That's organic inside of them. And that has a lot of weight to it. Where my thoughts, my words being put on them, that has a temporary power. And when that's useful, I use it. But it's not usually useful with the clients that I see because I'm not really working on the mental level. That's not, like you were saying, we all have our own fortes. We have our areas of specialty. And that's what's important to also understand. And that's what a lot of the training is about, is finding where you fit and where your power lies, where your medicine is. My medicine works more on what I would call the spiritual, spiritual level, but that's just a word. And it may not even mean what I mean by spiritual, might not be what anyone else out there means by it. But I work mostly on the spirit and soul level. And I don't really touch the mental or the emotional level. I'll also work on the physical level. And because the mental emotional is a projection of the others.
Yep.
So what I want to do is change the things that are fueling that projection, not change the projection itself.
Yep. So I can go both directions. So sometimes I can have someone, but through the reframe or through them seeing a new suggestion. I like to use hypnosis as well, forms of hypnotic kind of trance with people. And so sometimes just removing some of that cloud cover allows them to see the deeper part, allows them to take that apart. So, it's just like anything. There's so many different directions, and it's all very unique to each person, how it shows up. But I do work, that's kind of a big space where I work, is mental power. I work a lot into the mindset power, because if your mind, however your mind's working, dictates a lot of what's happening. And for even in my own journey, when I started to work on my nervous system and change my neural circuitry, I became a lot more aware of my imprints. I was able to see, sense, and feel them. I could become aware. I could feel, because I think it's everybody's different too. You started off being able to feel. I couldn't. I was without the ability to feel. It was
all I could do was feel.
Yeah,
that was it, man. My mind was so undeveloped. It wasn't even a thing.
Yeah,
for me,
it was right.
My first 8 to 10 years of my life. The mind didn't even really exist. It was just a little seed of potential floating around there. But all I did was feel, man. And I felt it hard. And that's just how my reality was. It was all pressure release. And and I didn't know how to operate in that. It took a long time until my mind developed to help me operate in that. But but we all have different gifts, and that's what's important to understand. The people I train, I don't turn them into me. I don't I give them the potential, but if that's not where their authentic medicine is, they'll develop what's authentic to them. And that's what's important. Like you said, you do a lot of work with mindset. I do very little work with mindset. So if someone came to me and the medicine they needed was mindset medicine, well, I wouldn't try to touch that for them, because that's a sin. If I thought it was outside of my wheelhouse of power, why would I experiment on them with that? What I'm going to say is, go see Tony. Go see Tony. He'll know what to do with that. Or I might say, hey, go see Hank over there.
If I don't, maybe I know somebody that can. I probably do. I know lots of very talented people now. So
exactly. So that's the other thing. You're not, a lot of people get into these fields and they think, oh, I'm putting up my shingle. I'm a healer. That means anyone who comes to me, I got to just reach for clients and pull clients in from. Why? They're not your clients. And then you're just going to get a bunch of people that you do subpar work with. And if you're doing subpar work for them, that's not going to reflect good on you. It's better to have impact on a handful of people, real impact, than to do mediocre work with hundreds of thousands of people.
Right. I think that the difficulty arises when it becomes more about money than it is about actually doing the work and helping someone. Like, I'm really open to, I'll invite anyone to come and see me. I don't know if I have what it takes to help you, because like I always say, it's about learning how to sing the song. I might have the song that you need, but if I don't, I probably know someone that can, and I might be able to refer you to someone or point you in a direction where it will take you. I think that's the really important thing, is what I don't aim to do is have like lifetime repeat clients.
Yeah. Then are you really helping them?
And I want you to fly and be free.
Yeah.
So from a business standpoint, that shoots me in the foot from a business standpoint, because a good business is revolving cash flow is what's happening. But my heart only wants to empower you to the greatest version you can be. And whatever that is with me, that I might not be able to take you all the way to wherever it is you need to go. I doubt I can, but I'll be able to begin you on some sort of journey where you're going and open that up. And that's really what it's about, because I understand things more beyond this surface level of reality, where it's more of now I feel, because I couldn't feel before. Now I feel everything. I'm aware that what I'm here to do is help to just create coherence in some sort of way. I'm not here to save anybody or rescue anybody. And that's the weird part when your healing capabilities first turn on and you heal yourself, especially where I came from. I went through the born again Christian phase where I wanted to save everybody. You need to save you. We need to save you. Come on, I need to help you. And all you do is push everyone away from you because they're just like, yeah, that's not for me kind of thing. And that takes some time in your own healing, letting go of that. Oh, that I need to save anyone. The more I became aware of that I don't need to save anyone, it just changed the whole dynamic and how I feel about my life, myself, and my reality.
Yeah. And something you touched on, I think is very beautiful. You know, all of you out there that are spiritual healers, spiritual workers, all of that, you know, maybe at times you're blessed so much with that it's better than any career you could ever choose. But you know what? It's not a career, it's a calling. And that means we got to do things in our life to support ourselves. My teachers live in these little villages, and they go out every day with everyone else, and they grow potatoes, they grow corn, they spin thread, they do what everyone else does. And they're part-time spiritual masters, which means only when something comes up that they need to address. If nothing comes up that they need to address under that hat of a spiritual master, they're just sitting there. And you know what they don't do? They don't promote themselves to anyone, not even their communities. That, you know, just from someone else. And you could be sitting there telling them about something going wrong in your life, and they're not going to say, "Oh, let me help you." They're going to sit there and say, "You know what? You already know that I have the ability to help you. If the world has put us together in any type of way, you already know that I have that ability. So you'll ask me. I don't have to ask you." And there's a real big thing in the mountains there that you don't work for people who don't ask you. You don't offer to work for them. It's a very big thing for them to come to you and to ask. Now, of course, in our culture, things are different. We're not a tight-knit community, so we have to do a little promotion to let people know we're out there. Right. But still, it's their job to come to us and ask us for the help, not our job to offer the help to them. And some people might see that differently, and that's okay too, because we're all different. We're all growing, and we all move in different ways.
I definitely offer help to people, but I have to say that that's not the most beautiful or organic way. I've had good interactions that way, but I'd say my best ones are always by people who are inviting me. Yeah. Invite me. Like you're saying, like, here, you found me here. The best things that's ever happened, the most rewarding parts of my shamanhood, my priesthood, have been that. We have been people that who have organically shown up in some sort of way, or heard about me, or someone else told them their experience they had with me, and they show up in that kind of way. Then, as opposed to the people that I found myself out there. And that's a business mindset, because I am trying to create as much abundance as I can to change the world. Absolutely. And so that puts you in this, you have to really follow your heart kind of what's going on in that kind of space. And that can be, that's like its own challenge as the shaman, is figuring out in this, because again, I mentioned that earlier, and something that's been coming to me over and over is we're in a space where no one's ever been. There's no shamans before us that can tell us about this. We're that. We're the thing. We're the evolutionary cutting edge is where that is. And we're meant to learn through trial and error, essentially, how this is meant to work, how this is meant to open up. But I definitely agree with that. And that's a big thing, is invitation. When you're invited to heal someone, think about it this way. I like to put it this way. Like, Jesus never healed nobody that didn't ask him for it, that didn't come to him. And why? Because it required their faith. Without faith, he had no power for them. That's how it was. So it's the same thing. If, like how you just said, if someone's coming to you, it's because they know you're the one. They know that you can help them in some sort of way.
Yeah.
And that's what is that? That's faith. That's faith. That's an understanding of knowing and having the ability to accept, because that's the main thing. Because that's a big misunderstanding too, is like, sometimes we have to wear that hat and show up as the healer, but most of the time we're holding a space and bringing in a frequency that the other being has a capability to tune themselves with. And if they can open up and tune themselves, that frequency that's present within your bubble, in your space, that's where the healing happens. It happens in them. Or just even if we can channel information and ask them a question and get them to think one new thought. That's the deepest form of healing. Like, I love to do physical pain healings and things like that. For some people in the public, that's a really glamorous kind of thing. I can't tell you those are the most beautiful or powerful healings I've witnessed. They're not. The most beautiful healings I've witnessed is when you have that person, that light turns on, that aha, that epiphany happens, that new stream, because I can see thoughts in a way. Like I'm aware that their energy forms. And if you can help someone, you ask them a question, it bounces back, it changes their frequency vibration. And now this new line of light came in. Oh, I have a new thought. That's it. That's the healing, because that's the organic change that we were talking about earlier that you can never implant on someone. You can't implant with your words, but if you ask them the right questions, knowing you're hoping that they go into that direction and answer their own question, but that's where that light kind of turns on, that new thought pattern arises.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I talk about it as a field of grace, working through a field of grace, and that's that the term I borrowed from a friend, Stephen Victor, who wrote a book about that. But I'm not using it in the way he's using it. But I have complete respect for him, and I wanted to put his name out there. But I really see my work, and not just the work I do for other people, but the work that I share with everyone, is about creating a field of grace, creating a field of miracles. And within that, it's a whole different paradigm. I understand that it's going someplace that won't be any type of career for anyone. I see where these things are headed. I see a beautiful future where we get beyond all of that stuff, where we become humans again, human beings, where I know what I can offer you, but 90% of the time, the best thing I have to offer you is my friendship, is my love as a fellow human being living through this experience. And then if you need something on that spiritual realm, I can be there for you. But it's not about it being a career. It's not about it being even the identity that I wrap myself in. I'm a human, and that is the most beautiful thing I can be. And I want to live up to that word as much as I can. I want to be the best version of a human being that I possibly can be. Not the best version you can be, but the best version I can be. And through that, all of the medicine, all of the beautiful synchronicities of the universe will play out its orchestra, its game.
Right. And by you achieving that and by you working in that direction, you make it possible for me and anyone else to become their greatest versions of themselves.
Absolutely.
Because that's my goal. That's been my drive since this all kind of started for me. Like, what can you do to become better? How can you improve your attitude, your mindset, the way you talk to others, and how you connect with nature and everything around you? How can you improve your fluid energy that's moving through you? How can those things improve? And it's like, I try not to be fixated on it, because then it's going the other way. And instead just opening myself up, I kind of now more in this stage of my development, I'm kind of more just really like, row your boat gently down the stream kind of thing. I'm really open, because that's always worked for me since I stopped resisting my reality, since I stopped trying to figure it out and trying to control the outcome. It's taken me everywhere I need to. I loved how when you were talking about that offering yourself, your friendship and everything. And the first energy that comes to me is Mary, because she's so gifted in that capacity. Because that's even, there's a guy that lives across the street from us, and he's a really nice guy, but he's on a lot of medications because he was diagnosed with some mental disorders some time back. But you can pick up, I think I told you about this off the camera one time, that every time this guy comes around, he takes me into like energy tunnel.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
warp, and I have like a nearly like a psychedelic experience just being in his presence, just him kind of being there, because he has this really deep ancient awareness that's inside this man with the troubled mind. And like the things that have come out of his mouth, he loves to come over, he'll hang out with us, and then he'll say things, and we'll talk about Mary. He'll say something about Mary because he goes over there, he lives with his elderly father. She goes over there and talks to them and is really friendly with them. And he said, Mary's a true friend. That's what he said about her. And I was like, you're right, man. That's exactly who she is. And then he looks at me, he's like, you're the smartest person I know. I was like, thanks, man. I don't know if that's any good or not. It's really funny. But that's what popped up into my reality is when you're talking about that, because that's something I love to do, is admire and connect with when I see other medicine people's gifts. That just fills my bucket, man. When I can see someone really doing something they love, or just notice the medicine in people that don't know they have medicine in them. To see that in them and how it pours through them, that grace, that beauty that can pour out of another human being. Like, oh, my hair's standing up on my body right now. It just feels so amazing for you to witness that. And then it reflects into you. Then you can become aware of like, hey, man, I'm a living miracle too. We're all this living miracle. And it starts to really bring your awareness into just how miraculous and amazing and just this present moment. The more I can just become aware and allow my energy to bounce off of me, the gratitude within me to touch everything in the room around me, it vibrates with me and becomes me. And I can feel the oneness and the unity of life just itself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Beautiful.
Tom says a few minutes ago, I had visuals of the park and lake you took us to during the car pie last October. I wasn't there, so I don't know what park or lake that was.
Well, we went to Shaker, I believe it was, lake. I think is the lake we went to, but I'm thinking he's talking about Cross Mound. I'm wondering, Tom, is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. I was at Deer Lick Cave the other day. That was pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, when I do work up there, and I'll be taking people through that. We're going into we're starting next weekend with a 7 or 8 month apprenticeship that's part live and part online up in Cleveland. Yes, Shaker Lake, he says. Yeah.
That was my first time there, even though I'm local to that place. Mary and I went there the other day. It was just a couple days ago. And we went there and I could sense and feel all the lines of energy there. I could feel everything that kind of comes there. I could sense the work that's happened there. And not just that there's other like medicine lineages that connect there. There's been other groups of people there. Really, really amazing kind of feeling there.
Absolutely.
Shaker Lake. Where is Shaker Lake? I don't think I've been there either. I'd like to check that out.
It's on the east side.
Okay. I'll have to check that out.
I couldn't tell you much more than that because it was when I was looking for the places, I just went with, I just kind of looked at a map and went with where I was drawn on that map. And those were the spots that I chose for the different places. Because that was what was needed, because the work is more, of course, it's car pies, it's initiations, but it's more than that. We're anchoring together SEKE system of energy that moves through mountains. Mountains are these giant, these tectonic energy lines. And we're basically connecting those things together. And that's part of our jobs right now, is to reawaken the sacredness in nature, to bring it back, because it's been desecrated. It's been forgotten. And like anything, if it's forgotten, if it's thirsty, it gets twisted up. It gets twisted up, and it does really extreme things to get noticed. So, I don't believe in evil, but I believe things get thirsty. I believe things get hungry. And if I'm thirsty or hungry, I'm going to do something. And I might do more radical behaviors to get that water or to get that piece of bread, because I need it at that moment. And that's just like everything else. If it's ignored, when sacredness is ignored, it gets twisted. When things get ignored, they get louder and louder until something hears it again. And that's why we use like ancestor altars, is so that our ancestors aren't ignored. Because if they're ignored, they're going to have to act out in our lives. And I don't know about you, but some of my ancestors, I don't really want them acting out in my life.
Nope.
I don't really need that energy like that. But I can honor them on their altar, and then they know that they're remembered. Then they know that they're loved. then they have the energy and the vibration they need to continue their journey. Because that's part of my job as a human being alive today, is to remember them. Even if I don't know their names, never saw their faces, just like we were talking about the people to come. Those are the two lines of this human family. And it's our job as the ones in this place of power to acknowledge and remember those two directions. It's not past, it's not future, it's two directions of energy.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. The Overlook was powerful as well. I agree. I've been to that Overlook a few times, doing some different kinds of things, connecting with technology through my Pokpo. I was telling you about, that's the place where I started connecting with cell towers.
Oh, is that the place?
I'm doing more and more of that all the time. It's more and more, it's becoming more and more intense. I don't even have, now it's to a point where it's just automatic. I become more aware that I'm transmitting energy towards it before I even know it's there. Before I had to know it was there and then use my intention to send towards it. Now it's just connecting. Little lines pop out all over the place. And then I just say, okay, I just stay with what I'm doing. Everything's cool. It's just going the way it needs to go. I love that Overlook, though. He says, I remember the towers and thought of you then. Yeah, there was only one tower. It's way out there. It's teeny tiny when you're looking out there. And I was out there, and then my guidance said to me, do you see that tower? I said, yeah, I can see the tower. It said, send towards it. Send something towards it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, well, you can use it. Everything's nature, Anthony. I'm like, oh, okay, let's play with that then. So I started to play with that, started to send energy out. I could see it go out over the horizon of the trees, go up the hill, hit the tower, and then there was like ripples in a pond. Woo, 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 started to move back, came back over the trees and ran back into me. So it created this circuit. And now what I've noticed is as I move around and go different places, what happens is I'm connecting this another form of CK connection. Is what I'm connecting these lines of energy that are invisible to us in some sort of way, but very visible to our energy field. It's totally aware. And now what's happening is I'm not the only one. I can sense that I'm not the only one. I've even told some other people to play with it so that I know there's others. And so now what's happening is technology is being used in a way to transmit conscious frequency is what's happening. So someone's sitting there on their phone unsuspectingly, has no idea what's going on. It's not like some vast change happens in that moment, but it's beginning to trickle feed new information into their eyes, into their brain, into the pineal gland. It all starts to soak up into there. Andrew Covey, I've been wondering where you are, Andrew. You're not Nardu today. Are ancestors always there? How do they lash out, so to speak? Seems like spiteful actions.
Well, I think it comes down to, I mean, we all have different ideas of things, but I'm not someone who believes that when someone passes on, they're perfected at that moment.
Correct.
I believe that this is the fast track. That we grow more in the physical dimension than in the spiritual dimension. So say you have an ancestor who just didn't like what you did. They didn't like your career choice or your mate. Now they're on the other side and they still want to do what's best for the ancestry. So maybe what they think is creating disruptions in your family life is what's best to get you away from your partner that they don't like you with, or to create problems in your job so that you get a job that they thought was a better job for you. So those are ways that they can lash out, if you wish. I don't think of it as lashing out. I think of it more as it's just what they think is best for you and for the line, for their ancestry, their descendants. And they're just doing whatever they think is best. But not all of our ancestors are elevated ancestors. Mm-hmm. And so if you're connecting with an ancestor, it's just like what I would say. If you knew them while they were alive and you didn't get along and you had this real strong disconnect on a certain subject, and you were like, well, I'm not going to go and ask them for advice on this. Why would you ask them for advice on the other side for that? You know, why would you go to someone who couldn't give you good advice about something and ask them after they're dead? You wouldn't, because they would give you the same type of advice. So, you know, that's where I come from with that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of indigenous peoples come from, and a lot of the ancient spiritual traditions. That's why they said they worshiped ancestors. It
Yep.
wasn't worship, it was love your ancestors.
Right.
Give them a little bit of love. Give them a break. Give them energy. Because when you feed them something, even if it's just a glass of water, by you doing it, even for an ancestor you never met and don't know even their name, just by you acknowledging that, whatever progression you've made in your life, they're getting to feed off of through your love. And when they feed off of that through your love, that has the power to help them evolve on that other side.
Yeah, that's it. That's just what I was going to say. So I was just going to say, like, from my perception is I see kind of our ancestors as kind of links in a chain between us and source. So you are all of your ancestors without separation, and any one of them that has like unresolved data, that can show up as a dysfunction. So this could be the spiteful actions, the things that kind of show up that are not in alignment really. And so one thing that can begin to happen is you can begin to process, if you have the ability to reach into your ancestral lines of energy in those links in the chain and notice these links in the chain that have unresolved data, you can become that conduit in order to be able to process that data. And as you process that data, that non-elevated being that you're seeing as your ancestor can then become elevated, because it's also a part of you. It's not a separate thing from you. And what's happening is when you're working in that way, moving that energy through you, because that's why we're here. I chose to incarnate into this body. I remember choosing to incarnate into this body because I knew I have what it takes to begin to unclog those lines of energy between me and the primary source, which are thousands and thousands. I'm not nowhere close to finishing that journey. It's just I've become aware because my spirit, my ancestral spirits were doing things causing behavioral issues in my reality because it was mirroring within me. I've always been highly sensitive. It was just shut off to me, to my awareness of what it is. So they were always kind of guiding in some sort of way, and they would show up, and these were the things that were driving me to drink. These are the things that were driving me to suppress emotion and all kinds of things. But what's happened is as I've continued on my journey, I've been able to kind of begin to rectify or straighten out some of those energy lines. And now some of my ancestors before that I were aware weren't like in this elevated state have been showing up more in these elevated states and being a lot more helpful in a frame of guidance to me.
Yeah, it's we do work in all of these traditions that is about elevating our ancestors, is about helping them to elevate if it's within their will to elevate. You know, we don't get to decide if they want to elevate or not. And I saw that Andrew said, is that keeping a personality? Well, only the personality is my ancestor.
That's
when you strip the personality away from the spirit, that's not my ancestor, that's the spirit. But the personality was the part that we see that as the soul in our tradition. That is the part that is my ancestor. The spirit is the spirit that moves in all of us. And it doesn't have a personality, never was my ancestor, never will be my ancestor. I'm as much it as it is it.
I can say some of my ancestors were, when I met them in the spiritual space, were completely elevated. So it's all kind of, my awareness is more like it has a lot to do with your interface with them more than like what they're doing to you. And like how Andrew said, our ancestor is always there. Yeah, for me, it's always been there. It's just I was unaware. It's kind of numb. And then as I became aware of them, like, oh, wow, you've always been here. I just didn't know that. I couldn't sense it.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew's got great questions here.
Yeah, I love his questions. He says, I would agree to feel each life's information goes to a pool that is accessible once in frequency. Being in a frequency of self-destruction like previous ancestors, like learning a lesson 30 years too late, but teaching a young child. Sort of.
Yeah, and there's also moments where someone might have an addiction or something like that. And you find out that they themselves don't have the addiction. You know, that they have no addiction. What actually is an ancestor that is nested inside of them that has that addiction. And that's why they nested inside of them, is because they don't want to go on without that. And on the other side, you don't get that addiction. You only get that fix in a body. So you can possess the body of a descendant and then kind of push them toward behaviors that you did. Then if you can create a good separation between that ancestor and the person, someone who might have thought they personally were an alcoholic finds out they're not at all. And they have no problem with alcohol.
I'm that guy. What you just explained me, that's exactly what I was saying. My previous versions of drug abuse, I have no want to do that anymore. So it's like with alcohol, especially the alcohol, the alcohol was totally spiritually driven through my ancestry. And it's just, I basically quit drinking in 2015, but I still from time to time would want to have a little bit of alcohol. At this stage, I'm not against it in any sort of way. I'm just not interested. I don't enjoy how it feels anymore. I don't like my frequency being muted. I'm to a space where I'm so sensitive that when it starts to change or gets muted, it's just uncomfortable. Before, I wanted to mute it because of everything I could feel that I couldn't understand. Now I don't want to mute it in any sort of way because life's just too beautiful. Everything's too beautiful and gorgeous for me to want to turn it down, to turn the volume down.
Yeah. And that takes me to something we were talking about earlier. Like when you hold a vision for someone's healing, then you realize that they're never going to meet the criteria to step into that vision, that you find a new vision with them. You find a new state for them to reach toward. And one of the most beautiful things and one of the most powerful healings is when a person realizes they have the right to change their mind.
Yeah.
That you can change your mind about where you were going and say, that's not right for me anymore. I can choose something different.
Yeah. You know, what's amazing is when I tell someone you're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. And they go, huh? Like, I'm telling you right now. It's like, and I'll give like a case in point. If you become triggered, you fall into an old pattern, someone's arguing with you and you become aware of it, you have a choice. You don't have to keep going down that path because your awareness is your freedom. As soon as you become aware, I don't want to repeat this pattern. You could be mid-sentence with someone and just lock it up, just zip it. They might think you're crazy or whatever, but that's their problem. Don't worry about it. Worry about you. You have nothing to defend. You can just stop and let go.
Yep. Another case in point, just from my own life, I'm a Uchamero. I'm a shaman who works with the San Pedro cactus. Guess what? I don't work with the San Pedro cactus.
Mm-hmm.
I am a shaman that knows a relationship with that, but it's not an important part of my life or identity anymore.
Uh-huh.
And that's being able to change your mind about something and decide that's not right for me anymore. Right. That doesn't work with me. I learned what I needed from it, but that doesn't work with me. If I'm asked to do one of those ceremonies for someone, I will do it. But I don't really personally have any need to do that. There's nothing for me to learn by doing it.
You've already gotten what you need from it and it's connected to you now. You've evolved with it. You've adapted with it.
As we say in the tradition, you've become the medicine. Once you become the medicine, you don't take the medicine.
Yeah, that's kind of how I explain it, as memorizing the frequency. So you can take, say, for instance, like cannabis. You can use cannabis, but I think the real depth of it is in a way, this is like kind of a way to say what you're saying, memorizing, knowing the frequency, understanding its frequency. Then you can tap into it anytime. You don't need the substance anymore to create the frequency within your energy being. You can just open up to it because it's already there. It already exists. You already have endocannabinoid centers and you have the ability to generate these things at will. You just have to develop the memory because it's all about remembering. It's really what it is. It's not, and that's why I always try to point out to. It's not that you need more. You're not going to bring in more. You're going to strip away the parts of you that aren't you. So what's already there can shine and be used in the way it needs to be.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a beautiful thing to be alive.
Is that like how common misconception of being possessed? I think there's lots of ideas of what that is. Yeah. But entity, I'm very aware of that. What I call, I call it more of like an intrusive program. Because for some people, ideas of entities really terrifying. What you don't do is you don't really ever tell a client like, hey, you have an entity, because then the entity will hide from you and it won't play anyways. So it's mostly at the idea of, for me, what I recognize, and it's actually pretty rampant right now. I see lots of it, as a matter of fact. Now that we're on that subject, I've had to notice recently there's a very large kind of rash, or it seems like, of intrusive energies, of some sort of parasitic energy that's within certain people. Now, I'm not saying that's bad, because again, I don't think anything's actually bad. Some of these energies have to attach to this person and cause certain things to happen so they can unfold.
I think it's, we do have a lot of misconceptions in our culture of possession.
Yes.
And one thing is, not every human can be possessed. I mean, it's a gift. Possession is a spiritual gift. It's not a curse. It's a spiritual gift that some people have, some people don't. It doesn't mean that they're better than anyone else. Everyone has their own way of communicating and bringing through information and serving the divine in this world. Some have the ability to be possessed. Classically with shamans, they get possessed by ancestors, by lineage holders, by animals, by other spirits. And it's the spirits that do the work, not the shaman. That's very classic shamanism. But once again, not every person could do that. Not every person has that ability to fall out, to not be there, to dissolve, and for something else to step in and to act through them. That's a gift. And in our culture, because of movies like The Exorcist and things like that, we're really afraid of it. We're afraid of losing control.
Right.
And part of that also goes back to how much Rome, the power of Rome, crafted the Western mind. Because one of the things about the Roman mindset was that there were these things, these passions that just took you over, like love. It just happened and you can't control it. And now you're stuck in it and you're in the throes of it, where no other culture really saw love that way. That's a Roman idea of love. That's romantic love. This idea that something comes and just takes all your will away from you and smashes you on the ground and you're left in the wake of it. Not saying that doesn't exist by me saying that, but I'm just saying there's these different qualities and ideas, and our culture is really afraid of anything that takes us out of the driver's seat. I think that's why our culture is so obsessed with science, is because we think that by having that model, it means that we'll control the outcome, that we have control over things. And those models don't give you any control. They just give you a theory of what's going on. Doesn't mean that it's actually what's going on. It's just the best thing we've come up with so far. But in the end, it doesn't give us any more control. We're still on a rock, flying around a giant campfire, falling through infinity. And no matter how many theorems we put to that, that's not going to ever be less magical or mysterious than it is this moment. It doesn't matter how much we put words to it. It doesn't mean we're ever going to understand it and control it.
Yeah, I feel it's better when you try not to understand everything. I found it better that way. I like it better why do you have to know everything? Because you hit the nail on the head. It's control. That's part of how we've been conditioned and trained, especially most of the world, but particularly here. I mean, that's how my parents were and their parents were. You're trying to control outcomes all the time because it's fear. You're afraid. You're trying to control. I need to know what's going to happen. And if I don't know, I'm not safe. I feel way safer actually when I'm not trying to know, when I don't want to know, when I'm actually just in this moment. I don't need to know. Why is it like that? I don't know. Does it matter? No, I don't need to know right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. And that's something for our Western world. We really need to learn how to let go of control. That's one of the things we've tried to drink the mystery out of everything and understand and know it all. And there are things that are just the mystery, and they're going to be the mystery, and we'll only be able to develop a relationship with it by allowing it to be what it is.
Right. Because when it all comes down to it, at the very bottom line of things, like people get caught up on ideas of facts and truth. Both of those things are deeply rooted in what you agree to them to be. That drives people nuts. Like, it's the truth. Well, okay, what's truth for you? Because what is truth? Truth is when you're agreeing to a set of ideas, circumstances, or evidence that you agree makes this true, which may not be true for me or anyone else, because you're agreeing to that underlying idea. Like 1 + 1 is 2. But what if 1 + 1 is never 2? That changes everything. And that's what makes this place so fun, is when we can go into that mindset, and makes us really acceptant of everyone else, because that's how my perception is now. I see all other human beings as living universes. I can sense and feel that there's trillions of little things, cells, pieces that are making this thing that's you, just like we're cells within another bigger thing. I can feel that kind of coherent kind of beauty there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's really a lot of my work is about re-spiritualizing the world, bringing the mystery back and allowing the mystery to stand on its own feet. You don't have to control it. It's not the idea of the wizard who's controlling these forces that are basically deaf, dumb, and blind. It's the idea that these forces are as intelligent as we are, and that it's really a relationship. And it's just like, I can never know Anthony. I can put all kinds of conditions on Anthony, all kinds of beliefs that I have about Anthony. I can even take his word for who he is. But the truth of the matter is, we're all mysteries, even to ourselves. And that's the great secret. The great secret is you are a mystery to yourself. Allow yourself to be a mystery. Allow yourself to keep blooming, to keep finding out new things, to live better and better lives. Allow that to happen. Don't saddle yourself with a sad identity. Be a living miracle.
Right. And experience your life and yourself beyond the mental limitations. Beyond all these mental limitations, there's so much more to feel and perceive. And that's what cuts people off from being able to see, understand, and feel, is because of all those limitations, because of all the boxes that everything's kind of put inside of. Trying to just allow yourself to let go of some of that stuff. And then this kind of circles right back around into ancestral trauma. So much ancestral trauma, that's what drives this need to know, because it's not inherent. You weren't born with a need to know. It's been imprinted upon you, and then also is part of your energetic field, which isn't disconnected from all who have come before you or after you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Zane, we're past 2 hours. We probably should start to wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up, man. It sounds like a good moment.
I think maybe we should come in. We've been soaring high. Maybe we should come in for a soft landing, slow it down, and we can be the Christmas bird. What did you call it? The Santa condor or something?
I have no idea. I don't remember. I remember saying something. Something was said.
All right. So all I would ask you to do is, what do you have going on? What do you have coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have all kinds of things. Tomorrow, actually, here in Athens, I'll be doing an event called the Wellness Retreat, I believe is what it's called. And there's a bunch of us getting together, and Don Eduardo Apaza is coming up from Peru, and he'll be here with us. And we're just going to be doing like a whole day of different types of healing. Some people are doing sound baths, things like that. And then next weekend starts a hybrid apprenticeship program that I'm doing with Hank and Melissa up in North Olmsted. And we'll be doing that for the next 7 or so months. And then really soon, I sent out an email to all the mentors. You got one too. About a group to join where we'll talk about what's going on and chances to mentor and things like that. And hopefully we'll be doing the next completely online mentorship apprenticeship starting in May, but it might be June. Just because I want to give all you guys enough time to get it out, get the word out to your community, to people who might be interested in joining. So it will either be May or June, depending on how quick we get everything going and moving forward. And then I will have the next Modern Shaman's Diet. I'm pushed that off to May, and I'll get a link for us next time we're on here, so that people who want to join that can join that.
That sounds like a book, Zane. You should write The Modern Shaman's Diet.
You know, it is. There's a book they get, and it's about 100 pages altogether. And I don't give it to them all at once, but there is a book that I wrote that goes along with the course. So maybe I should do a little more work with it and just promote the book as something separate that just kind of leads people to it. But yeah, I did write a book.
Good. I guess I was right on the trail of that then. Yeah. And then there's another book too. I always recommend to my students, and I recommend to everybody, check out Inca Mountain Magic. It gives you like some basic overviews and things of the tradition. And for some people, that it seems like a lot of people get really interested in wanting to know some of the Quechua terms. There's a little glossary in the back. My students love that. I'm like, here, just use this. Check that out. It's not really important, though. It's kind of what I tell them. Your language is what's important.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something beautiful about Quechua. No doubting it.
I love it.
But really, especially as you all see moving forward, I'm moving away from it. Not because I want to move away from that tradition, but because it puts up roadblocks for people's growth.
Yes.
Because they start to think in the Western mindset that the words are so important, and that they're just not. They're just words.
The intention's what's important.
Yeah, my teachers would be the first to say the language is not the important part.
Nope. It is beautiful. And for me, when I use it, I have an awareness that there is a difference, but it has to do with my intention with it. It's not just I'm using these words. The words are like some sort of keyway into the quantum space. As I send them out, they return back with frequencies. And then the spirits love it. That's because they remember me. I guess it's what it is. It's because they're telling me now. It's because we remember you, Anthony. Like, thanks. So Mary has a guided meditation on the 11th. So this will be, what is today? Today's the 10th. So that's tomorrow. So tomorrow, Mary has a guided meditation at 7. So check that out. We have a bunch of other like in-person events and stuff that are happening. So you can check that out on our website or at Eventbrite. Those are the places that we do those. I have lots of stuff I haven't put out yet, but it's ready. So I'm going to start putting those things out. So just kind of keep your eyes out and look for those things. Dun Zano's been on lots of other podcasts. Check him out. He usually pops up with Hank. Probably tomorrow morning he may be on.
Nope, tomorrow I'm busy. I won't be here tomorrow.
That's right, you're with a Patsa tomorrow.
But most likely I will be popping on with Casey on Friday.
And Casey on Friday, the Space Shaman. Check that out. So make sure you check out those things. Those are all when I have time, when I'm not busy, I try to pop in there and watch and connect with those things. So I have a good time with those. I think that's it. Check me out. I'll be on tomorrow morning with Ask the Shaman. Bring your questions, bring your friends. Let's have a good time. Don Zano, I want to thank you so much for being on this show again. I always enjoy these things. I love to soar with you, my brother. Anaiki kuyaiki arpichai sonkolai.
Arpichai sonkolai wakichai. Antantamanain kwiki.
Anaiki. Thank you. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight and soaring with us. And I want you to have a beautiful night. And I'll see you soon.
Much love, you all.
Love, peace, and chicken grease. Bye-bye.